The sun beat down relentlessly on Redemption Gulch, a narrow canyon where the air hung thick with dust and the oppressive silence of forgotten dreams. Sheriff Caleb Stone, a man whose face was etched with the hard lines of a life lived on the frontier, rode alone. He wasn't after an outlaw this time. He was answering a plea from the few remaining families in the isolated settlement of Redemption, a place slowly dying from a mysterious blight. Livestock wasted away, crops withered to dust, and people fell into a lethargy that often ended in a silent, desolate passing. The local doctor spoke of dry fever, but Caleb, a man who trusted his gut more than medical theories, felt a colder dread. The last letter from Redemption spoke of whispers in the stones, a dry, rustling sound that seemed to emanate from the very earth. They claimed it drove folks mad, stealing their vitality. Caleb scoffed, but a prickle of unease ran down his spine. As he entered Redemption Gulch, the silence was palpable. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. The few cabins stood like skeletal remains, their doors ajar, their windows empty eyes. He found the town leader, Old Man Hemlock, sitting on his porch, withered and pale, staring blankly at the dust. "Sheriff," Hemlock croaked, his voice barely a whisper. "It's the dust. It listens. It takes." Caleb dismounted, the only sound the crunch of his boots on the parched earth. He noticed something peculiar. The fine, reddish dust that coated everything in the gulch seemed to shift subtly, almost imperceptibly, even without a breeze. It was like a living thing, a slow, silent tide. He walked towards the town well, a vital source of water now ominously dry. As he peered into its dark depths, a faint, dry hiss seemed to rise, like air escaping from a hidden cavity. The dust around the well's rim began to swirl in miniature vortices, dancing with an unnatural life. Then, a collective dry whisper brushed against his ears, not a sound of wind, but a chorus of myriad voices, dry as parchment, speaking in a language he couldn't comprehend, yet understanding filled his mind. "Empty! Dry! Join!" A sudden sharp chill swept through the sweltering air, a coldness that felt utterly alien to the desert. Caleb stumbled back, drawing his Colt. The whispers intensified, and from the depths of the dry well, a faint, sickly pale light began to pulse, growing brighter with each passing second. The dust all around him began to rise, forming into shimmering, indistinct shapes, like skeletal figures writhing in a slow, silent dance. This wasn't sickness. This was something ancient, something that consumed. And it was awakening, hungry for what little life remained in Redemption Gulch. Sheriff Caleb Stone backed away from the well, his Colt revolver raised, the pale, sickly light pulsing from its depths casting eerie shadows around the desolate gulch. The dry, rustling whispers grew louder, more insistent, a cacophony of ancient voices that seemed to emanate from the very dust swirling around him. The unnatural coldness radiating from the well intensified, making his breath mist in the desert air. He looked at Old Man Hemlock, still sitting on his porch, his eyes wide and vacant. The dust had already claimed him, turning him into a hollowed-out shell. This was the dry fever, not a sickness, but a slow, insidious consumption of life itself. From the dry well, the swirling, pale light coalesced into a defined form. It wasn't a monstrous beast, but something far more unsettling. A towering, skeletal figure, composed entirely of shifting, shimmering dust, slowly rose from the well's mouth. It was gaunt, its limbs long and spindly, its form vaguely human, but without flesh or features. Where its eyes should have been, two pinpricks of faint, opalescent light glowed with an ancient, fathomless hunger. From its silent, gaping maw, the dry whispers seemed to pour forth. It was the silent dust, a living entity that fed on the very essence of moisture and vitality. It was the blight that had withered Redemption Gulch. The dust figure stepped out of the well, its movements unnaturally smooth, making no sound as its dust limbs contacted the ground. Wherever it passed, the already parched earth beneath its feet turned instantly to a fine, chalky white powder, utterly devoid of moisture. The air around it became impossibly dry, scorching Caleb's throat, making his vision blur. He felt his own strength beginning to ebb, his blood growing sluggish, his skin tightening with an unnatural thirst. He fired his Colt. The bullets tore through the dust figure, leaving swirling trails of dust in its wake, but having no discernible impact. The figure simply reformed, its opalescent eyes fixed on Caleb with an unyielding intensity. The whispers, now a chilling chorus, echoed in his mind, "Give, dry." Caleb dropped the useless revolver. He knew lead wouldn't work. He had to find something else, something that could combat a creature of dust and thirst. His eyes darted around the deserted town, searching for anything. His gaze fell upon the old collapsed water tower at the edge of the settlement. Its wooden frame was rotted, its large tank rusted and riddled with holes, but it was massive. And beneath it, he remembered, was the town's underground spring, a forgotten source of water that Hemlock had mentioned, sealed off years ago when the well was dug. A desperate idea formed in his mind. Water. Life. The opposite of the dust's hunger. He had to reach the spring, to unleash whatever latent power it held. He turned and ran, not towards the dusty figure, but away from it, towards the crumbling skeleton of the water tower, the monstrous dust figure silently pursuing him, its cold, consuming aura spreading across Redemption Gulch. Sheriff Caleb Stone ran with a desperate urgency towards the collapsed water tower, the silent skeletal dust figure pursuing him with a relentless, consuming presence. The air behind him grew impossibly dry, pulling at the moisture in his lungs, making his muscles ache with an unnatural thirst. The constant, dry whispers intensified, filling his mind with a cacophony of desiccated voices. Run, but can't escape. He reached the base of the crumbling water tower. It was a chaotic mess of rotted timbers and rusted metal. He remembered Hemlock mentioning the underground spring was sealed beneath a heavy stone slab at its base. Finding it now under pressure would be a miracle. He began to frantically kick and pull at the debris, his hands tearing at the rotten wood and shifting rocks. The dust figure was closer now, its opalescent eyes glowing with a terrifying brilliance. He could feel the chilling cold radiating from it, seeping into his bones. The earth beneath his feet began to turn white and brittle, cracking into fine powder, just as it had around the well. Suddenly, a massive section of the rusted water tank above him groaned and collapsed with a deafening crash, sending a shower of metal and splintered wood cascading down. Caleb dove out of the way just in time, narrowly avoiding being crushed. The dust creature, momentarily obscured by the falling debris, let out a dry, rasping hiss of frustration. It reformed quickly, its hunger undiminished, and began to flow over the new pile of wreckage, its silent advance now more direct. Caleb scrambled over the new pile of debris, his gaze fixed on the ground beneath the collapsed tank. There, half buried by the rubble, was a large, circular stone slab, its surface etched with ancient, worn symbols. This was it. The seal to the spring. He pushed and strained against the heavy slab, its immense weight resisting his every effort. The dust figure was only yards away now, its looming presence casting a chilling shadow over him. He could almost feel its consuming touch, its silent more ready to draw the life from him. The whispers were deafening, a chorus of triumphant, dry voices. Just as the dust figure reached him, its ethereal skeletal hand reaching out, Caleb let out a guttural roar of defiance. With a final desperate surge of strength, he managed to budge the stone slab. It grated against the earth, sliding a few inches to the side, revealing a dark, circular opening. From the opening, a faint, cool mist began to rise, carrying the distinct scent of fresh water. And then, a low, rhythmic gurgle emerged from the depths, the unmistakable sound of flowing water. The dust figure recoiled immediately, its shimmering form convulsing violently. The opalescent eyes flickered, their light dimming. The dry whispers turned into a chaotic, high-pitched shriek of aversion, a sound of pure agony. The mist from the spring, though barely a whisper, seemed to burn it, disrupting its very essence. Water. It was the creature's bane. The life-giving force that the dust consumed was also its destroyer. Caleb, seeing its reaction, knew what he had to do. He had to fully unseal the spring, unleash its power, and cleanse Redemption Gulch of the silent dust that had brought it to its knees. Sheriff Caleb Stone wasted no time. The dust creature, screaming its dry, agonizing shriek, recoiled from the rising mist and faint gurgle of the unsealed spring. Its shimmering form convulsed, losing cohesion, the opalescent eyes flickering wildly. Water was its anathema. "This is for redemption," Caleb roared, his voice hoarse but filled with a new surge of determination. He shoved with all his might against the immense stone slab, gritting his teeth. The creature, sensing his intent, tried to rally, its ethereal hand reaching out again, but the mist from the spring seemed to push it back, causing it to hiss and writhe. With a final desperate shove, the heavy stone slab slid fully off the opening, revealing a dark, gaping maw beneath the collapsed water tower. A surge of cool, clear water erupted from the depths, bursting forth with surprising force. It wasn't a gentle trickle. It was a powerful, subterranean spring, unleashed. The water, bubbling and churning, immediately began to flood the area around the old well tower. It cascaded over the cracked earth, washing away the layers of dust, and the very ground that the dust creature had desiccated instantly began to darken, absorbing the life-giving liquid. The dust creature let out a horrifying, drawn-out shriek of pure annihilation. Its entire shimmering form was now caught in the deluge, and wherever the water touched it, the dust dissolved instantly, vanishing into nothingness with a faint, resentful hiss. Its opalescent eyes flared one last time with unimaginable pain and despair, before dissolving into swirling mist. The creature didn't just break apart. It was consumed by the water, obliterated by the very essence it had sought to drain from the land. Within seconds, the immense, skeletal dust figure was gone, vanished as if it had never existed, leaving only the rushing sound of the overflowing spring. The water poured forth from the opening, forming a rapidly expanding pool, then a small, gurgling stream that began to snake its way through the barren gulch. The dust, which had once seemed alive and malicious, was now merely ordinary earth, rapidly turning to mud as the spring washed over it. The oppressive coldness lifted entirely, replaced by the cool, fresh air carried on the rising mist. The haunting, dry whispers ceased, replaced by the joyful gurgle of the spring and the steady rush of water. Caleb stood there, drenched but alive, watching the miracle unfold. The land itself seemed to sigh with relief, drinking deeply after its long, forced thirst. Patches of withered grass, once brown and brittle, began to show faint hints of green. He walked towards Old Man Hemlock's porch, his heart aching. Hemlock was gone, too far gone for the water to save. But his death, and the others, had not been in vain. Caleb had purged the silent dust, brought life back to Redemption Gulch. He looked at the overflowing spring, then at the now silent town. It was a desolate victory, but a victory nonetheless. The curse of the silent dust had been broken. The days that followed were a testament to life's resilience. The spring, now flowing freely from beneath the old water tower, carved a new, vibrant path through Redemption Gulch. The once parched earth, so long thirsting, drank deeply, and within a week, patches of bright green grass began to sprout, a stark contrast to the surrounding desert. The air, once thick with the oppressive cold and the scent of despair, was now fresh and clean, carrying the earthy smell of damp soil and new growth. Caleb Stone, battered but unbowed, began the grim task of burying the dead. Old Man Hemlock and the other victims of the dry fever were laid to rest in the now softened earth, their faces no longer contorted in silent agony, but peaceful in death. The terrifying whispers were gone, replaced by the gentle rush of the spring water. Word of the miracle of Redemption Gulch spread slowly. Curious travelers, prospectors, and even a few families from distant settlements began to arrive. They saw the flowing spring, the burgeoning greenery, and the vibrant life returning to the once dead town. Caleb, reluctant to speak of the true horror, simply told them of a long-dormant spring that he had managed to unearth. Most accepted the simple explanation, marveling at the sudden oasis. The few remaining families in Redemption, their eyes no longer vacant, began to stir with renewed hope. They helped Caleb clear the rubble, patch up cabins, and plant new seeds. Children, who had been listless and pale, now ran and played, their laughter echoing through the gulch, a joyous sound that banished the last vestiges of the silent dread. Caleb stayed in Redemption Gulch, not as a sheriff, but as a guardian. He had seen the terror of the consuming dust, and he knew that some parts of the desert held secrets that should remain buried. He patrolled the edges of the newly greened area, his eyes constantly scanning the distant mountains, ensuring that the peace he had fought for would endure. He never truly forgot the feeling of the dust trying to consume him, the cold whisper in his mind. Sometimes, when a strong gust of wind would kick up a dust devil, he would feel a faint prickle of unease, a phantom echo of the ancient hunger. But it was just a shadow now, a memory. The small settlement of Redemption Gulch began to thrive again, a testament to resilience and the power of life. The spring became known as Caleb Spring, a symbol of hope and rebirth in the harsh desert. People began to talk of Redemption Gulch not as a cursed place, but as a place of new beginnings, a true redemption. Years passed, and Redemption Gulch blossomed into a thriving small town, its lifeblood the perennial spring that Caleb Stone had unearthed. The old, crumbling cabins were replaced by sturdy wooden homes, a new general store opened, and the sounds of children's laughter and bustling activity filled the air. Caleb, no longer just a sheriff, became the quiet, respected elder of the community, a man whose wisdom and calm demeanor were a cornerstone of Redemption's new life. He never left the Gulch. He had found his purpose there, not just in defeating the silent dust, but in watching over the life that had returned. He spent his days tending to a small garden he cultivated near the spring, its vibrant colors a constant reminder of the life he had saved. His nights were often spent on his porch, watching the stars, listening to the gentle flow of the spring water, and the natural sounds of the desert. The memory of the dust creature never entirely faded. Sometimes, on the driest, stillest days, he would feel a faint, almost imperceptible chill in the air, a fleeting ghost of the consuming cold. He would watch the dust devils dance in the distance, a reminder of the power that lay beneath the earth, always dormant, always waiting. He never told the full truth of the silent dust to the new generations, preferring to let the legend remain a simple tale of a spring found and a town saved. But deep within him, Caleb knew the truth. He knew the cost of that thriving life, the silent thirst that had once threatened to consume everything. He was the guardian of the oasis, the silent watcher against the shadows that still lingered in the desolate parts of the desert. He had buried the silent dust, but not its lesson. He understood that life in the West was a constant struggle against a harsh, unforgiving land, and sometimes against forces that defied understanding. Redemption Gulch was a testament to human resilience, a beacon of life in the vast, empty desert. And Caleb Stone, the quiet sheriff turned guardian, was its unwavering protector, forever listening to the gentle whispers of the spring, and forever watching for the silent dust that might one day stir again.